Gettysburg Museum of History Studios.
You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, patrons, and welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg. I am sitting here with our friend Mikey B, Mike Boriski. Hello, Mikey. How are you?
I'll take our friend. I don't know about your friend.
Well, no. Yes, your friend, actually, meaning the audience's, but not mine.
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you. Just wanted to clarify that point.
Thank you, Mike. Today we have somebody on the phone who has written a book called On Great Fields, The Life and Unlikely Heroism of Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain. Now, we're Gettysburg people. We know a lot about Joshua Chamberlain on an afternoon in July, don't we? And how he single-handedly saved the Union Army here at Gettysburg.
Yes, with
right?
Buster Kilrain.
With Buster Kilrain
Correct.
and his bloody armpit.
Correct.
But there's a lot more to Joshua's story than just Gettysburg. He existed before, and he existed for many, many years afterwards. And Ron's here. Ronald C. White is here with us. Ron, welcome to Addressing Gettysburg. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks for the invitation. I'm delighted to be with you and your audience.
Thank you. And actually, I think tonight you're also talking to our book club. Is that not correct? Or
Yeah.
tomorrow? Is that
Tomorrow, not tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
Tomorrow night, yeah.
So good. Very good. So they're going, they are fantastic interviewers. So be prepared.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So Chamberlain, you said that you kind of wanted to take a wide angle lens look at Chamberlain. So we're getting in everything, right? Because everything prior to this kind of focused a lot on the Civil War. And I mean, I guess rightfully so. We're interested in that, right? And he spent 4 years of his life, almost 4 years of his life fighting the war. But he was such an interesting guy. Like, he did so much more before the war and way much more after the war, and lived to a long time. And he had this horrendous wound that never really healed. And so let's kind of get into some of the highlights of all those other years. I think we know what happened in the war, but who was he before the outbreak of the Civil War?
Well, he grew up in Brewer, Maine, a town of just 1,000 people, born really 50 years after the American Revolution. He was raised in a family that was deeply religious, kind of a 19th century version of Puritanism. Puritanism has often suffered a kind of bad reputation, but at its best, it was a life of the mind. And that's what Chamberlain became. And then at age 19, he went to Bowden College in Brunswick, Maine. To enter, you had to know Greek and Latin, and you had to say Greek and Latin texts from memory. Just amazing.
Yeah, it's funny. That part of the book, I remember you listed a bunch of things that they had to know. And
yes.
I remember I'm sitting there reading it. My girlfriend's reading something on the couch, and I stopped reading, and I said to her, hey, listen to this. And I listed all the things that they had to know. And I said, I don't know college graduates that know what half of those things even are, let alone can demonstrate proficiency in them. And this was a kid, a teenager had to do this back then.
He did. And I have been in the attic of the home where he lived, so he had to learn Greek. So he set up a schedule, 17 hours each day. He put the schedule on the wall, hour by hour by hour by hour, to master Greek. And then he thought he wasn't really prepared, so he delayed his entrance till February. And then he said, well, now I've got to catch up with the entering class. And boy, did he do so.
Yeah. I mean, but really, that just goes to show you the mindset that he has. He's clearly a man who is a self-educator, self-starter, very determined, and that's going to come in handy later. Mike, you wanted to say something.
Now, Ron, when I was looking a bit about you going to UCLA and then Princeton, where I think you did some theological studies, are those classics something that they focus on, even at the highest level of your postgraduate studies?
Not really. No, not really. This is a kind of what I would call an emphasis on a moral education, which we've now completely abandoned. And so you studied these not simply to know the text or the words, but to sort of have your own moral compass enhanced by reading the classics. Both of the Bible, he could memorize portions of the Bible, but all of the great Greek and Roman writers. This was the point of education in the 19th century.
And were they all, or not, maybe not all, but were a lot of the colleges and universities affiliated with a church back then?
almost every one was founded by a Protestant denomination. Interestingly, it was not technically founded by a Protestant denomination, but the churches and the ministers in Maine thought of it as their college. If you wanted to go to Harvard, that was a 5 or 5.5 day horse ride. Yeah. And so that's why Bowden was founded, to have a college far to the north. First, Maine was actually part of Massachusetts. When it became a separate state, Bowden was their college.
Okay. So when he gets to school, what kind of a student is he? Is he a good student? I mean, I'm guessing he was.
He was a very good student, but he had a huge physical disability. He was a stutterer or a stammerer. And in that particular era, education was basically oral. A lot of recitation, a lot of tutoring one by one with professors. So this really inhibited him until one of the professors helped him understand how he could overcome that stuttering. And to me, one of the ironies of the whole story is years later, he becomes professor of oratory, the boy who arrived as a stutterer.
Wow. So, and what was it that the professor did to help him overcome the stuttering?
Well, he said the ancient Spartans literally sort of sang through their several letters that are particularly difficult, and so he encouraged him to practice speaking, to practice reciting before he got to the problem. And part of it is a self-confidence that you can overcome this. You never do fully overcome it. I mean, you could still hear Joe Biden, at 80, whatever, still once in a while struggling because he was a stutterer.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating how the brain works in that way. So, for instance, when I was younger, I couldn't pronounce my R's.
Right.
I went through this speech therapy. But like you said, it took years for it, even though I overcame it, it's almost like you've trained your brain to become habit. Sometimes I'll let it slip sometimes because it doesn't truly ever go away. Right. But you've trained yourself to do that. And like you said, during that time, oratory prowess and skill is crucial.
Yeah.
It's huge. And it probably would, I mean, he couldn't foresee it at the time, but would lend himself to his own Civil War career and his post, war career in politics.
Right.
Yes.
So when he, how long does it take him to finish school?
Well, he goes 4 years, but he is so ill after the second year that he drops out for a year. And one other story we should bring into this early years is in his third year, when he returns to the college, Calvin Stowe comes as professor of religion. Well, Calvin Stowe's wife is Harriet Beecher Stowe.
Oh, yes.
And one Sunday morning, she has literally a vision while she's sitting in church that she must write about the enslaved persons that she had met when she lived with her father in Cincinnati as they were attempting to cross the Ohio River into freedom, either in the United States or even into Canada. So she starts writing what becomes Uncle Tom's Cabin. Initially, it's simply serialized as chapters in a magazine, but she invites on Saturday evening a number of the Bowden students to come and listen to her. I think that's the first time in far northern Maine that Chamberlain ever encountered this whole terrible dilemma of slavery.
Yeah. That was the fascinating part when I was reading that connection to Harriet Beecher Stowe and Uncle Tom's Cabin. And he was there as she's working it out, like basically, right? She clearly, I'm sure she adjusted things after these meetings with people.
Absolutely.
Right.
No, she encouraged people to make comments, to ask questions. I'm sure she learned from that. And so the serialized chapters were not the final version of what becomes Uncle Tom Cabin. Yeah.
So that's fascinating to me that he was part of that very historic moment. Go ahead.
And the point of people in Maine or that part of the country not really being exposed to slavery and what it is. It's one of those things that living in modern times, we just forget how distance really dictated your life and what you knew about life. Even if you read a lot of the post-war GAR stuff from the guys that might have been in the Iron Brigade, out in what was the wilderness of that time, Wisconsin, Michigan, slavery to them wasn't a big deal because they didn't know any black people. It never affected them. So it's just fascinating in a day of technology where we can instantly communicate around the world that some of the issues that caused the Civil War were not known to people in the North, but they certainly had never come face to face with it. And I think that's why Harriet Beecher Stowe, her work was so crucial.
Yeah. Yeah, it actually kind of reminds me of, you know, how in Westerns when they have an Easterner come out and a tenderfoot, you know, it kind of reminds me of that. Is you only know about it from dime novels, and then you come out and you realize it's not at all like a dime novel. Yeah. So that's a good point that distance made a difference. So, okay, so Harriet Beecher Stowe, he's there for the readings of her different chapters. Now, you mentioned that he had to leave because he got sick, but he didn't just get sick. Like he was on death's door, wasn't he?
He was, and this is where his mother decides she's going to turn to a kind of homeopath doctor, which brought her a lot of criticism. But whatever happened, he recovered and returned to school. Yeah.
Oh, it was. How long was he out for? A few months.
He was out for a few months, but then he decided to just stay out for the entire year and come back. So now he's really a member of two different classes, the classes with which he began and the class he just joined. Yeah. So that must have been an awkward experience also.
You know, it just goes to show, though, you know, now he couldn't have known this at the time, but we do. And, you know, we know how the rest of his life plays out. So when I'm reading this part, I'm feeling the frustrations of a young man trying to get started in life, because I was one. And I get that. At the time, he probably thought, as I would have, that these are like major setbacks and this is never going to happen for me. You know, it's just, but you keep going and you don't know what life has in store for you, you know? So you're just in that moment, but he's just so dedicated to doing it anyway. And it's just, I kind of had to laugh because I was like, you know, Josh, you're all worried now, but you have no clue. You know, just get through it. You're going to be fine because the world has something big in store for you. So it is a good. I think people should read it just to really get a fuller picture of this guy that we all have kind of grown to love, and see just what he went through. We know him probably initially from his triumph, but we don't know about his failures prior to and afterwards.
A good way to say it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So school's done. Let's get through school because, you know, we all wanted to get out of school. So let's get Josh out of school. What does he do first after school? And how old is he when he graduates?
Well, he's already about 23 years old when he graduates.
Yeah.
And now there's a conflict within his family. His mother and father have two completely different visions for what he should do after college. His father, knowing that there was a long lineage of men who were in the military, wanted him to go to West Point. In those days, you could go to West Point after you graduate from college. His mother wanted him to be a minister or a missionary. So for whatever reason, whether it was simply his mother's wish or his own, he decided to go to a theological seminary, Bangor Theological Seminary in Maine. He goes for 3 years, and at the end, he receives invitations from two churches to become their minister. But at the same moment, he gets an invitation from Bowden College to come and give an address at their commencement, for which he will receive a Master of Arts degree. Evidently, the address was so marvelous, the next morning they offered him a teaching contract.
So let me stop you there. Sorry to interrupt you.
Please, go right ahead.
Okay, so he's, what, 23, 24 when this is happening?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Who is he that they're inviting him to do the commencement? Like, at that point, who is he that he got their attention?
He had won a great number of awards when he was a student at Bowden.
Okay.
So he was already well known and well appreciated. But this now gave him another opportunity to sort of add on to his laurels. He could earn a Master of Arts degree.
Yeah.
Actually, to make the story more compelling, at his commencement from Bowden College, he was selected to be one of the student speakers. He literally froze when he gave it. He lost his place. His face, I think, turned red. He walked off the stage mortified that he had failed in this opportunity. So 3 years later, he's invited to speak again. This time, it's a triumph.
Yeah.
So again, the sort of story, the point that you made earlier, there's a failure in his story, there's a success in his story. Sometimes they're close together.
But he has the successes because he keeps trying. He keeps going.
He keeps trying. Right.
He doesn't give up. No. Okay, so he gets the job at Bowden, I think is where, yes. Right? Okay. Now, what was he teaching?
He was teaching actually oratory.
The rest of this preview is available over at patreon.com/addressinggettysburg.